All right, good evening and welcome to the Finance Committee meeting. It's February 15th, 2023, 6:30 p.m. The chairman, also known as Tim Gross, President Pro Tem Council, is not here this evening. You will be here hopefully in about 30 to 45 minutes. Let's start with a roll call.
Mayor St. John.
Here.
Mr. Capel.
Here.
Mr. Neff.
Here.
Mr. Grumney.
Here.
Mr. Martin.
Here.
Mrs. Cooper. Here. 6 present.
Great. We had a meeting on January 18th, 2023. If you were here and we'd like to make a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes.
A motion by Councilman Dave Martin. Second by Councilman Dan Capel. Any discussion or edits? Roll call.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Mr. Capel.
Yes.
Mrs. Cooper. Yes. Mr. Grumney.
Yes.
Mayor St. John.
Yes.
Mr. Neff.
Yes.
6 yeas.
Great. Under new business, we have a bond update.
All right. So on packet page 3, what we've given you here is a timeline for a proposed financing on the Sunbury Facilities Improvement Project. So this is the new police department. It's the municipal building improvements. So just Dana and I have had an initial kickoff meeting with the financing team. And so want to give you a sense of what the schedule looks like for that. As you can see on packet page 3, the anticipated bond amount is $4 million. That would include the acquisition of the buildings, and that aligns with the estimate from the architect in terms of what they think the costs are going to be based on the conceptual drawings that were done, 30% drawings that were previously done. So just a few highlights for this group. So we will begin to internally circulate the bond ordinances. So there'll be a bond ordinance that comes to council. You'll have to approve that basically sets the stage for the maximum amount that you can borrow. It's likely that the bond ordinance will set an amount that's higher than $4 million. But you can basically agree that you're not going to go above $4 million. That's just a protection so that you don't have to go back and start the bond review or the bond approval process all over again, or the ordinance approval process all over again. The next significant date is on June 21st. We'll come back to the Finance Committee and we'll bring the bond ordinance to that meeting, brief you on what it says, and then hopefully get it in front of council for the first reading. You may recall from the discussion we had a month or two ago about the facilities improvement project, we should have a relatively firm number on the cost of the improvements by April 1st. So we'll have a number that we can work from in terms of setting then the amount in the bond ordinance. Assuming that the bond ordinance then follows, the 3 reading process will be done in mid-July. And then there's a 30-day referendum period. We built the referendum period in. It's possible you could do an emergency, but we tried to plan for a non-emergency if all goes well. By August 30th, the mayor, Dana, myself, our bond counsel, and municipal advisor will all meet with the rating agency to get a rating for the city for the first time. So there'll be a lot of work in advance that get prepared for that meeting. The municipal advisor is suggesting we go to Standard & Poor's to get that bond rating. And then based on the architect's schedule, we think we'll be back in front of council with a contract. Well, the bid documents will be out. A contractor will have been identified and hopefully back in front of council in early September to get approval on proceeding with that. And that's important because then we'll have the real number in terms of what the actual borrowing needs to be. And so what then follows after that, the preliminary official statement, the preliminary official statement goes out, they price the bonds, an official statement goes out, the final terms are set, and we should be closing on that loan sometime in the mid-October timeframe. And we had talked about, if all goes well, the construction begins somewhere in that that early to mid-October timeframe anyway. So those should line up pretty closely. So anyway, that's a high level of what the schedule looks like. There's a lot of work to be done before we get to that point, but just want to give you a sense of that. So that's the first thing. Any questions on that or anything you want to add, Dana?
No, I think you hit it all.
And then what you see on packet page 4 Baker Tilly is the municipal advisor for the city. You may remember that we entered into a advisory agreement with them probably a year or so ago, a little less than a year ago, probably. What they've given us now is an updated engagement letter that basically spells out the work that they'll do in terms of issuing this bond. The price for their work is on packet page 8. It's a flat fee of $49,000, just a little over 1% of what the anticipated bond amount would be. So we're not asking the finance committee to approve the additional engagement tonight, but we do want to bring that back to the council meeting next time. And hopefully you'll be comfortable with that. If you've got questions though, between now and then, please let us know, and Dana and I'll hopefully get you the answers.
I just wanted to point out one thing on page 8. It's the second paragraph. So the way the payment works for Baker Tilly and for our bond counsel work, which is an attorney that structures the agreement as well, they are paid out of the bond itself, out of the transaction. Think of it as closing cost.
Yes, thank you. All right, so continue to make good progress with the facilities project. And on that, Steve and I were meeting bi-weekly with the architect. And so we met with them again earlier this week, and we'll have the meeting with the services team sometime next week to begin the conceptual work associated with that second building for them. So anyway, I'll keep you posted on how I can.
So when you say bi-weekly, do you mean twice a week or every other week?
I mean, every other week. Isn't that
Okay.
what bi-weekly? I don't know. Maybe
I
I'm-
know that semi-weekly, but anyway, that's all right. Just
Every
give
2
me a
weeks.
hard time.
Every 2 weeks. Yes.
Okay.
They're actually interchangeable. So all right, we're ready to go.
So biannually means twice a year.
Yeah.
Semi-annually means every other year. So that's why I asked the question. I just want to know if you're meeting twice a week or once every other week.
Hey, Amber, while we're on the next topic, can you Google that today? All right, thank you.
I mean, Steve may want to meet more often than that.
No, that. Meeting with the architects. And they are, and we did schedule, they're coming up to see the service department. We're gonna talk with the whole crew about their space and how they use it and how they could use it better and things like that. So.
All right, anything else on the bond? All right, we're on the wastewater treatment plant supplemental loan.
So this is just a heads up, on the council agenda this evening. The first resolution you have is authorization for the city to apply for a loan, additional money from the Water Pollution Control Loan Fund. I just want to remind folks that when we engaged with CT to do additional design work on the upgrade for the wastewater treatment plant, we knew there would be additional design fees associated with that. So this contract or this application is basically to seek additional funding to help cover that portion of the project. Keep in mind that the total amount that was estimated for design fees is $920,000. You had previously approved $200,000. So the second upgrade, or the significant upgrade there, is about $720,000 in funding. So going out to get a loan on this so that it's not depleting our cash reserves. So that'll be an action item for the council meeting, and just wanted to share that. If anybody had questions, we'll do our best to answer. And if not, Wes will be here. Maybe he can help at the council meeting. Okay.
We're on to branding, communication, and media services.
All right, so this one is on packet page 11. So a couple of things. One is, I think some of the council members have met with others about the importance of developing a more consistent brand for the city, improving maybe the professionalism with which we communicate to the public, and how we might be able to improve our engagement with residents. And so to kind of advance that discussion, what we've put together is a scope of work that outlines the anticipated duties associated with any kind of professional services contract that we enter into. So, each of the three broad categories are brand management, That's really just the kind of what is the city's brand, if you will. I mean, what are the colors? What are the logos? How are they used? Not only on print materials, but digital materials as well. We've not done a particularly good job, I think, of being consistent in that respect. So that's one of the duties that this individual would help us with. We've talked about communications, and I've identified some potential opportunities in which we would engage the professional in helping us. We do an annual State of the City address. Perhaps we could do more around that and promote that a little bit more and assist the mayor in speech writing if necessary. Public safety emergency, if we had a big response in the community, that this might be an area in which we might want to engage an outside professional. Economic development announcements, substantial planning and development projects as we've experienced. And I know one thing that's important to the police department are key personnel recruitments. If we could do more to not only communicate what it is that we're looking for, but do a better job of communicating what it is that we're looking for. So those would be some of the services associated with communication. And then the final category is just content and producing content that we'll be able to not only use on the city's website, but also find other ways to promote as well. So we've listed some of those down here. Educational videos of all the city services, just kind of what your city does for you and how they do it and whatever. The year in review. We certainly need to improve our photos and images. Community events promotion, that's done by a third party, maybe for the most part. We do a little bit here internally. And a few other items. We do have the new resident welcome materials on there. We are making progress on this, but we do think that this individual could help us maybe package it a little bit better too. So the final thing I'll say is, we would envision this being a retainer-based agreement, and the idea there is the notion that we'd be hiring somebody to help augment the staff who's available in real time as needs emerge, because when you're in these kind of spaces, those things do kind of emerge unexpectedly. I've identified 360 total hours of service over the course of the year. So basically estimating roughly 30 hours per month. Not saying that every month is going to be an equal amount, but that's how the retainer system would work, a base amount each month. Based on the proposal that I have, and I don't have that necessarily in front of you today, we just want to go over the scope, but the proposal I have is at $75 an hour. That's a little over, it's $2,200 or $2,250 a month for a total of $27,000 over the course of a year. Substantially less than we might pay a professional, to be on staff with that skill. So the goal tonight is one, just to make sure you're aware of what we are working toward, to show you the scope. If you had thoughts in terms of adjustments, we could certainly make those, but then come back to the council at the next meeting for approval of the vendor, the identified vendor.
Are you looking for a multi-year commitment, or will it be a year to year over the first couple of years till we see if it's working?
Well, I've written this as 360 hours in the first year. So, I think we would then say, we may be able to build a renewal clause into the contract that would allow some additional and maybe some additional negotiation to either increase or reduce that depending upon what the need might be. Yeah. So, thoughts, comments? Yeah, great.
I think the timing's right too.
Wonderful. Yeah.
What do you think, Murray?
I like it. Seems pretty a good value at $27,000. Yeah, we can get that done.
Yeah, the one things that I like in the scope of work, the educational videos and city services, I think that's almost like foundational level information that will tie into every one of these other items. We need assistance with telling our story. If you don't know what a services department worker does or what the police department's total role is, you can't appreciate that. And, every year you're going to get a question and say, who is this lady named Rita?
Still owe her now that we're a city.
We did. I myself included. So, I'm really excited about that. The other two items around economic development announcements and substantial planning and development projects. That's another, I mean, we're doing a lot of investment here. I mean, both in equipment and capital and land and property, and we have district level plans going on right now. And we need help amplifying that message and putting it in to, bite-sized chunks for the public so they understand what we're doing. I mean, these are big ticket items. They're the right thing to do, but as much as we put it on Facebook, I don't know that we're going to capture everyone or communicate effectively with everyone.
If I could add, it's also a great tool if we ever plan to go to the public for a tax levy. Public, if they don't know who's doing what in the city and what we even do here, they're less likely to vote yes on any tax levy or be willing to pay their taxes for the general services that we provide. So it's also an added benefit.
You need an approval from
Well,
us.
again, the thought was I would bring it back to the council meeting and it'll be an action item under new and unfinished business at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at that meeting, are we approving the scope of work
Yeah.
or are we actually approving a vendor agreement?
Well, we'll approve a vendor. I don't know if I'll have the final contract in place, but I mean, we'll approve the vendor to perform this scope of work.
All right, anything else on that? All right, we have the South Columbus Street demolition. Steve, do you want to provide an update?
Yeah, this is just a coming attraction for council, pretty much. We opened bids last Friday. In your council packet on page 25 is a summary. I was able to get it in one page, which is pretty good for me. Results were very good. And the references were good for the lowest and best bidder. And no red flags in terms of BWC status or disbarment or anything like that. They've done this similar work in Fairborn, Ohio, both houses and larger commercial structures. And so we'll be asking tonight to award that contract to hopefully have them start about March 1st or thereabouts.
All right, great. Thank you. All right, policy updates, debt and cash reserve.
Yes. So these reserve policies that I'd like to take a few minutes of your time and talk with you for a few minutes came to light in discussions with the upcoming bond issue. And also as a result of Councilman Martin's comment about cash reserves from the Finance Committee last month. In discussions with Baker Tilly, with Brian Cooper, decided that it would be prudent for the city to adopt certain policies regarding debt and cash reserves. This is very common. Many cities have these policies, and these are policies to just define exactly what balances of cash you require in your accounts. In general, how fund balances are monitored over time, what the compliance standards are in keeping cash. So it kind of goes hand in hand also with the investment policy, which we discussed at the Finance Committee last month as well. So I am going to be working on creating a City of Sunbury debt policy and cash reserve policy. I have a very good starting point, and I'm just going to go through and fine tune and bring it to your attention by next Finance Committee meeting. And I would at that time ask for you to review it and to go through, ask any questions, and eventually approve these policies. But it can be a two-way conversation. Give me your feedback. I can incorporate edits and changes. We can work together to make sure we're all in agreement with how these policies are going to be written. But I just wanted to start with an introduction to let you know that that's what I'll be working on and bringing to you within the next month or so.
Just remind me what some of the percentages that we discussed last time. I'm not asking for a policy update, but just generally, was it something like 25%, liquid cash on hand?
Yeah, 28% is really the standard that is built into the sample document that I have. So we're going to start there, 28% minimum.
And then the 72% is in investment products and vehicles.
Yeah, most likely, or yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. All right. Thank you for looking into that. Any questions on that topic? All right. Financial reports, monthly and financial reports. How are we starting off this year?
Yes, we're doing great. If I could have you turn to page 27 of your packet. I'd like to go through a report that I've created. And this was in response to Councilman Grumney's request on the plus and minus 10% variances by department on a monthly basis. So I want to start with the revenues. That's what's on page 27, and it goes through page 30. Okay, so these are revenues by fund, and this is just for the month of January. I wrote some comments out to the right on any instances where the variance was quite high or at least more than 10%. And as you can expect, revenue in January is going to be pretty low and not very well collected at all. 1 month of 12, we should be at 8.33%, ideally, if everything is even. For a lot of these, we haven't collected that much yet because, for example, property tax revenue, we get that twice a year from the county. So we'll see 50% of that bump in March or April whenever we get the distribution. So everything doesn't come in evenly. The one thing that does kind of come in evenly is the income tax revenue. And as you can see, from the third line down from the top on page 27, there's our income tax there. We are at 7.26%. We are a little bit under where we should be given the year, but in my experience, January collections are never usually on par. We usually like to see them come more on par come March, April, May, when more people are paying their prior year taxes. So as far as the revenues go, there's not really anything that I would like to point out and bring to your attention, but feel free if you're looking through this, if anything catches your eye and you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer. On page 28, sewer tap revenues, those are trending higher right now for January because we had 7 new builds in January. And I expect that budget amount is going to be blown out of the water very soon. So that was probably a very low budget.
That's maybe a dangerous phrase to say when talking about wastewater.
Thank you. Always a comedian. Let's see, anything else? So those are the revenues, nothing too exciting there to talk about besides that sewer tap. So I would like to draw your attention now to the expense. And if you have questions that come up, feel free to interrupt me. I'm more than happy to talk about them. And the expenses start on page 23 of your packet. And they go through page 26. So these next 4 pages are a little more exciting. They have more color. So everything that I've highlighted in yellow is where the variance exceeded 10%. So just to go through, I'm not going to go through all of these, but just to give you an example, the cruiser repair, which is that very first yellow highlight there, you can see we appropriated $15,000 for the entire year for police cruiser repair. In January, we've spent $1,468.45, which is 9.8% of the appropriation for the year. And that equals a variance of 17% more than the 8.33% where we should be online. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay.
And that I believe was one repair, if I'm not mistaken, to one vehicle.
It was one repair on the old cruiser number 94.
Right.
Yeah, basically all on one cruiser.
And I think that was due to things that happened in December.
Most likely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But since we paid it in January, it comes out of January budget. So yeah. So yeah, this is basically the concept of this entire report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to explain. As you can see, I have comments for every item where there's more than 10% variance.
Yeah, I just want to thank you very much for doing that. I know this takes extra work and effort, and the comments are phenomenal because then it really just helps say that makes sense. Or, I have a question about that. So I really appreciate you doing this. And then I think it really just demonstrates transparency on the numbers and what we're doing and why something may or may not be lining up for this particular month, but more than likely as the months move on, it starts to balance out. But I appreciate it very much. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I'm happy to.
Steve, the capital expense on the loader, showing that we made the payment this year, we received that last year.
Yeah,
There's something off with that one.
Are you looking at page 24?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the bottom capital expense.
Yeah, so this was for was a John Deere wheel loader, compact wheel loader that I was told was budgeted in 22, but we didn't get it until 23, and therefore we didn't get the bill for it until 23.
we had it at 22.
Right.
And I was not aware that it was budgeted, nor was I aware that it didn't come in. So had I known, and maybe it's my mistake and I didn't ask the question, but had I known, I would have budgeted higher for that amount, knowing that just like with the police cruiser that we ordered in 22, I've rebudgeted for that in 23 because I was aware that we hadn't paid for it yet. This was an item, same situation as the cruiser, as far as I'm aware, but I didn't know about it.
Just to make sure I understand it, talking about payment out the door, we made that payment this year.
Yes. For this 100,000, 98,000
Yeah.
from two, yes, that was paid in January.
I know this is a silly question, but can we just double check we didn't double pay for that? Because we received that in a while ago. We received a
Okay.
piece of equipment a while ago. I want to say maybe 4 or 5 months ago.
Oh, yeah.
I did give it to the street maintenance manager who's no longer here. He said he approved it, so
Okay.
But I will double check.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Great work, Dana. Any questions for Dana, Colin?
So that concludes that part, but I also want to talk about the bank to book reconciliation. Which is that in here?
Yeah.
Okay. Page 31, thank you. Page 31. Okay, I briefly discussed my bank to book reconciliation process last finance committee, but it was very, very truncated. So I'd like to take just, 5-10 minutes and go through this if that's okay. On the left-hand side at the top, you'll see every bank account that we have, starting with Fifth Third Securities as our investments, Star Ohio under there, and then our general operating bank account with First Commonwealth. And we also have a First Commonwealth MC, which stands for Mayor's Court. So that's a separate bank account for the Mayor's Court funds. Total of all bank accounts as of January 31st was $17,513,671.72. At the end of January, we had $18,080.64 in outstanding checks. All of those checks are listed out to the right. And when we deduct those outstanding checks from the bank balance, we get $17,495,591.08. Then I compare that with our book balance, and the book balance comes straight from CMI, from our software. And that's $17,859,437.31. And between the book balance and the bank balance, we have a variance of $363,846.23. Under that, I go through every reconciling item that I can identify that explains that variance. And this is a kind of a rigorous process where I go through very detailed in the bank statement, compare every transaction that has hit the books and do a one-to-one comparison. I've done this for the past October, November, December, and January. So this is my 4th month doing this reconciliation to that level of detail. And I feel very confident that the unidentified variance at the bottom of $682.92 is going to be consistent going forward, which means that is the unidentified number that I can't figure out. It precedes October of 22. It's only $682, so I'm not ripping my hair out to try and find that. I'm happy to if council would like me to, But at this point, I feel like I will have that consistent variance as long as I can get that same variance next month, then we're good. I feel confident right now that it's consistent. So talking briefly about the items in the reconciling item portion, we have some payroll variances at the top. That $42,000 is all due to timing. And when I say timing, these are most likely, or I'm sorry, they are primarily deductions and withholdings that have been withheld from employees' paychecks that haven't yet been remitted or cashed through the bank. And that's pretty high this month because of OPERS and OPNF. It was a 3 pay period cycle. And so we held on to those contributions and that match for 6 weeks as opposed to 4. So this is a large portion of those matches and deductions are in that 42,000. So it's a timing issue. So next month that'll be eliminated or very significantly reduced. There's a mayor's court bank account, which it's $1,400 and I need to incorporate that somehow, but it's just sitting out there because I know that's the variance for that right now. Sewer payment variances of 5,000. These are all timing items that I've identified. The bills have gone, sorry. We've either posted the revenue in the system and it hasn't cleared our bank, or we've received it in the bank and we haven't posted it in the system. That's what those are. And I have them all identified. I just gave you the lump sum number here. And then I have various expenses paid, not posted. And this is my, just didn't get to book these in time, but they will all be posted next or in February. So they will not show up on this reconciling report for February. Same with the revenues posted, not yet received. And then finally at the bottom, there's some investment income that hasn't been posted yet. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to post those monthly or quarterly. Right now I haven't posted them for January, so that's why they're showing outstanding. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm happy to answer any questions. I personally love to do this because it gives me a very clear picture of where everything is, what we have outstanding, what we haven't paid. It's crisp and concise, and I know exactly where everything is.
And this would be considered like a baseline. So moving forward, then you should theoretically that 682.92 should carry. I think it's 92. My eyes are fuzzy, but
You're right.
It should carry the same amount. So that should be the overage every single month all the way through the year.
Exactly.
Okay.
We just need to write that off, call it a loss. I don't know what we call
Yeah.
that. but
Yeah, we would just write it off.
I can't believe you love this stuff to that level of detail. Or you offered to pull your hair out if we asked. Never would I ask you to do that. I think you've done an amazing job. I really understand it, which is great. And thanks for walking us through the process sequentially. Helps us get a lens into your world. Does anybody else want to do what Dana does?
No.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. I enjoy it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Would you like to add anything else? Thank you so much. All right. Unfinished business investment. Did we hit on there?
I talked about the cash reserve and the debt policy, but the investment policy is slightly different. This is what was circulated as a red line version to you all on January 18th during that meeting. Since then, I have gotten feedback from our law director who suggested that I take it to Brian Cooper of Baker Tilly to get his feedback. I spoke with Brian about it. I told him that I received the bulk of the investment policy from or with the collaboration with myself and Brian Carter of Fifth Third Investments. Brian Cooper, knowing who Brian Carter is, and he said Brian would really be the expert in that, so he would trust anything. But just to be safe, he did review it and he has no comments and said all looks good. So if any of you have comments on the investment policy, I'll gladly hear them. If not, I'll bring to you to next finance committee a final version of it and hopefully go for an approval of that.
Yeah, what I took away from Brian Carter's comment was the riskiest of risk, which I even have a hard time saying risky investment within the confines of the Ohio Revised Code. What's permitted are not risky compared to any type of investment you or I would be doing with, you know, our 401k or however you invest your money. I mean,
Yeah, it's pretty sound. If you follow the investment policy according to the ORC, you're not going to lose money. I mean, it would take a lot. It would take something seriously wrong to happen to
And
lose
that way
money.
everyone's in trouble.
Everyone's in trouble. Right. Yeah. So that's all I had on the investment policy. Just wanted to keep that under unfinished business to keep you guys apprised of where we are on that process.
Great.
That's all I got.
Dale, did you have something? Okay, Steve, Amber? All right, good deal. Anything from committee? All right, this is a great meeting. I think we're ready to,
Motion to adjourn.
right, we've got a motion by Councilman Dave Martin. Second by Councilman Dave Capel. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Martin,
Yes.
Mr. Capel,
Yes.
Mayor St. John,
yes.
Mrs. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Grumney,
Yes.
and Mr. Nutt.
Yes.
6 days, we're